Well, hello everyone. Brandon Bonifer back on Focus, and today we are meeting with Rip Gramza. Rip Gramza is the chief of police in the Marshfield community, and we're going to be talking to him about the developments that are taking place in the police department, how they're dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic, and just how law enforcement is handling some of the questions that are coming back in. Guys, we've been doing a number of these podcasts. We're doing it to kind of bring some additional communication to you. We're meeting with leaders throughout our community, people in different businesses and industries, just trying to communicate with you different things that are going on. So if you want to stay in touch with us, now's the time. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button, like our page, and we'll continue to bring you the updates on the news that matters most to you. So getting started with the show, like I said, we have Rick Grams, the chief of police of the Marshfield Police Department. Rick, thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you.
So a little bit, give everybody kind of a set. You're in your office. I'm in my basement. Matter of fact, just before we started a call here, I wanted to get myself a fresh cup of coffee, and I went down the stairs wearing socks on carpet, and long story short, I ended up with a pot of coffee on my lap. So this work at home, safer at home thing so far isn't panning out for me so well. How is it for you?
Better than you. I'm worried about you. I'm thinking we should send paramedics up to check on you and make sure that you're not bleeding out.
No, I'm not bleeding out, but I will tell you on the way down, that was one of the fears that went through my head. I'm like, do I hit my head on a step and no one knows I'm here? So it's one benefit of being at work and being surrounded by people. My failure to function sometimes, I got people watching out for me. So talking about COVID-19 a little bit here, there's obviously awareness of that here in our community and throughout the state of Wisconsin, as well as there's awareness for everything else that you guys are doing. And I kind of want to talk to you a little bit about just kind of like what are some of the precautions? What is the department doing to keep the officers, the staff, and the community safe?
Well, one of the best things we can do in an effort to keep the community safe is to keep ourselves safe. Some of the things that we're doing for that includes obviously making sure that our personal protective gear is plentiful, not an overabundance, but just so that our officers have the gloves, masks, hand sanitizer, et cetera, that we need to keep ourselves healthy. Because as long as we're keeping ourselves healthy, we can still effectively and efficiently respond to the community and their needs. So I think that's the biggest thing we have to do on the forefront of having, being emergency responders is just keeping ourselves healthy so that we can respond to any needs that the community has of us.
And you talk about some of those PPE items and providing those for your officers to keep you guys safe out while you're on patrol or working in the office on cases. Has any community members or any partners stepped up and made any donations, or do you guys have a need at the moment?
We're doing pretty good. We usually keep a pretty good stock on hand, but again, um, the stock that we keep on hand is for normal circumstances or situations. And although we can say that this is definitely an abnormal time in the world and U.S. history and for the city of Marshfield, we haven't seen, aside from just visually looking to see things different in the community. I mean, we haven't had abnormal calls for service or um, abnormalcy, I guess, surrounding our immediate job, but that could change tomorrow, could change today. But ultimately, yeah, I mean, our supply is well for now. I mean, as long as things don't get to an extreme, uh, we actually received a donation just 2 days ago of hand sanitizer and Sani wipes that an individual dropped off that had a in on getting some, so they're able to supply us with some of that. But gloves were doing pretty well. We had ordered up uh, a year's worth of gloves at the beginning of the year, which is what we would normally do. We may go through those faster than normal, but as far as those N95 masks, we've always kept some in the squads for probably the last 3 or 4 years. So, so since we have those in our squads already, I mean, there's a surplus, but I mean, we're talking probably 10 masks per squad. We probably have another surplus of maybe 50 to 80 masks within the station, and we have some more on order. But again, I don't know where we fall in the priority line of getting those or what what the accessibility is to those right now. I heard that there's anywhere from 4 to 16 weeks out.
And as you guys are kind of going through all this and you're making your own adjustments, you guys have always done an amazing job in the last few years, especially utilizing social media to kind of help communicate and connect with the public. And I think you have now almost like 20, was it close to 25, 27,000 followers looking at your page right now. In the last few weeks, obviously people have become more and more aware and grew more attention, especially to social media, just trying to kind of stay in the know and stay updated. We've seen it, other people have mentioned it, but you guys have, you know, once again, embraced your communication. And most recently, obviously, with the stay safer at home order that came out by Governor Evers, there was a lot of questions that came up. And I know Marathon County Sheriff's Department, Wood County Sheriff's Department, both put out official press releases or informational bulletins about calling the 911 to deem if you're essential versus non-essential. Now, I want everybody to know we all are essential in life. We all have our purpose and our place. But in this order, it's really breaking down is the businesses and if their need to keep the economy moving forward and keep us safe. What kind of questions or what really led to you guys putting out the fake news, squashing some of the rumors about, what people are asking of you?
In a very short period of time, we had quite a few individuals either emailing, calling, texting, or just talking in person and questioning what the governor's order was going to mean for them. And we were hearing anything from that there was fear that this was going to become, um, a police state, and we were going to have zero tolerance for nearly everything, to the potential of being able to stop people for no reason other than them just driving through the community. Questions of if somebody was driving their child back to college in out of state, would they need proof that that's what they did when they re-enter Wisconsin? So I don't know if this was just poor communication, or just confusion on the state of Wisconsin, or if it's just kind of a hypervigilance or a fear of the unknown and the unexpected. So I thought, well, let's at least, since we do have the following that you mentioned, I mean, we have, I believe, close to 27,000 followers, and I know over 20,000. Yeah, I think over 27,000 followers. We thought, well, let's just get the message out from us. I know that goes wider and more broad than just the city of Marshfield, but if we can if we can connect with a good percentage of those within the community that follow us on Facebook and they share that information, I mean, it should be able to at least get that message out and about. I don't exactly know. You're a little bit better at the analytics behind Facebook, but according to our page, it said that there was 71, just over 71,000 people reached, and 25,000 for engagement, which I think is good.
It's very good. We've
Yeah,
seen
so
a lot of people that we've been talking to in the last few weeks. Their social engagement numbers are really jumping, and I think what's really, honestly, the truth is we, hunker down and have less one-on-one communication in person. We're finding that we're, going to our phones, if it be using FaceTime, if it be using Skype. We're using a program here for this podcast to connect with people. Are just looking to still stay connected, and one of the best ways to do that is social media. And I think that's why it's important that as leaders in the community, we continue to communicate and provide strong, positive, factual pieces of information out there. And the touch on that a little bit, I mean, from what we've seen from what you're doing, what the fire department's doing, what the mayor has done, the city has kind of really taken a one effort approach to try to be transparent, but more importantly, be present. How has that, as a leadership team and you guys meeting regularly to talk about the situation here in Marshfield, how has that really kind of brought you guys together, and how do you feel that communication to the public has been perceived?
My understanding is that it's been perceived well. We had put our first meeting together on the 15th, our first leadership meeting, and my concern, I got a hold of Steve Barg and uh, well, first Ryan Christensen from the school district and I had talked and said, we should really be on the same page with a lot of the things that are transpiring and happening, and he wanted me to be in the know. I wanted him to be on the know of some of these things because this was, obviously rapidly evolving. So then I got to think, okay, well, who else? I'm on the YMCA board of directors, so and I know that there are some major changes happening at the Y, and I thought, okay, well, if there's major changes happening within the city of Marshfield, government wise, and now the school district wants to involve us, and just through the board of directors, I'm involved with the Y, and I'm also on the board of directors for United Way. I was just starting to see a lot of these pods of very valuable individuals within the community doing their own thing. And I really thought, okay, one of the first things to break down in a crisis is communication. And one of the biggest wastes of resources during a crisis is a lack of communication or a duplication of resources and people doing the same thing. And then at that point, you're almost competing against one another. So I thought, let's just see if we can get as many people as we can that are the key players in the community on the same page. So with that, we got a hold of the city administrator, the mayor, myself, and the fire chief. Um, our communications coordinator came on board as well to facilitate some of just kind of a one-stop shop for some of that communications. But then we reached out to the school district of Marshfield, to Columbus Catholic Schools, to United Way, Mackey, YMCA, with the hopes of when we start making some decisions and at least communicating, that information can be shared out to the partners of those partners. So YMCA can maybe share it out to other daycares that they are exposed to. The school district could make sure it's shared out to all the parents and kids and faculty. Obviously Mackey can focus on the business district. We also had Main Street Marshfield at the table. So, and I'm sure I'm forgetting a couple of groups. The faith community, we had Andy Cavernan from Cornerstone Church become a part of that so that he could be um, the go-to person for communications amongst the faith-based um, groups that we have in town. So the goal was let's keep everybody updated as to what we're doing. Let's try to um, minimize duplication through this communication and just share these resources. And from my understanding, that communication that I've been sharing out has been going well. I think it's helped each of us in our own silos so that we're not segregated to our silos, but we can work within our silos, but still work within a larger communal component. A lot of the communication that has come out of this has been shared out by the mayor through either press conferences or just little, I guess, informational snippets. My understanding is that it's been well received. Again, I haven't been really following the analytics of it. I've received feedback from the community saying that it's appreciated, and you see some feedback as it relates to some of these. Some people either they're verbally giving the feedback, or like you said, you can track how many minutes people are on there. But um, I don't think you're ever going to go wrong with over communicating, especially in a situation like this. It's the under communicating that can really put ourselves and the community at a disadvantage.
No, absolutely, and we've seen that communication come out throughout all those different various organizations, and it's been ongoing, and it's been, I think, unified to a lot of levels. The message seems to be pretty consistent throughout all of them. As far as law enforcement goes, in working with the county, have you been actively connecting with the Wood County Health Department and the Wood County Sheriff's Department, and even maybe the Wisconsin Rapids PD?
We have. So actually, just yesterday we had. I think in the last probably week and a half, we've had 3 meetings amongst Wood County law enforcement. And these are virtual meetings. I think the first one happened in person, but I've only attended all of them virtually. Uh,
And
the
how has that experience been for you attending meetings like that virtually? Do you see that maybe through this, do you guys will utilize those resources and tools more frequently?
We may. I mean, I think that there's still value in getting together in person and sharing ideas. There's a lot of communication that gets lost when you're not seeing somebody's nonverbals. So, I mean, I still think that there's value in getting together and just having more of a social component to it. We've tried to use, I mean, we've been using, I guess, I don't know, remote or virtual communications for a while. I mean, most of our officers will um, down um, testify for prelims, preliminary hearings through either branch one, two, or three through Wood County courts. Um, just using video conferencing. So, I mean, we're ready. We've been doing that for about maybe 2.5 years or so. So, I mean, there's great value to that. I mean, it's a time saver, it's a money saver. But I think that there's still value in getting together and actually having some of that more intimate conversations or in an intimate group, once this health crisis goes. But yeah, there's some challenges. I mean, I think I would rather video conference than just audio because at least then you can, I mean, in this time of social distancing, I mean, it's still nice to see a face and actually um, converse with people and be able to watch their reactions. And like I said, a lot of communication, a large part of communication is their nonverbals. You can see if somebody, the level of somebody's fear, anxiety, or concern over a topic or a concern. But um, it's been a challenge, but I think it's been one that's been well received, and I think just the communication in and of itself is huge in not guessing at what people are trying to do, or writing somebody an email and forgetting something or thinking that something through an email may be misinterpreted or not be well communicated on our end or well received on our end. So it's been going well, but yeah, we met with like I said, Wood County law enforcement a handful of times. I've had numerous texting opportunities with Sue Kunferman from the health department. She's put out a lot of emails that are very informative. She's taken part, or her coworkers have taken part in our community meetings that we've been having. That just started, and then and then with us being partially in Marathon County, we've also been communicating with Marathon County law enforcement officials in the DA's office and the health department there. But with the primary focus, with the majority of Marshfield being in Wood County, that has been where most of our attention has lied. But no, communications are good. I mean, it's again a challenge at times, but um, it's never been we've never been unable to communicate. I mean, you even had some communication glitches yesterday when trying to talk to Wood County law enforcement, and it came to the point where I think the sheriff called me on his cell phone to my office phone, and I just participated that way because their conference call, their Cisco system was rejecting certain calls for whatever reason.
And with COVID-19 kind of being on the front of our mindsets, putting all that aside, I mean, the department still has to operate. You guys still have multiple cases that you're still processing and reviewing. They're still active situations always taking place. And over the last few weeks, you guys have had a number of things that have kind of come up that are non COVID-19 related. And I want to dovetail for a minute here, maybe for the rest of this show, with everything going on with COVID-19, the department is still responding to a lot of urgent matters and you're still doing business as usual. We've seen in Milwaukee County, obviously, with people, safer at home, we're going to imagine that there's going to be less traffic violations and we're seeing less people on the streets, but there's still a heightened awareness for everything else that's taking place. And I kind of want to touch base with that with you in a little bit. Let's start off with um, just traffic enforcement. Are you guys doing anything different? Are you making yourselves more presence? Have you seen an uptick in calls in relation to retail thefts, to stolen merchandise, to even the transportation or recovery of any drug paraphernalia or anything like that of substance in our community?
I wouldn't say that there's been an uptick, but I would definitely say that there hasn't been. I mean, aside from people not being out and about as much and doing the social distancing and practicing the safer at home practices, um, there really hasn't been a decline in that. There hasn't been an uptick, but not a decline. But again, that could change today or tomorrow, for all we know. Um, I think with the lack of need to travel to and from work or to and from stores as frequently, making fewer, I guess, unnecessary trips, uh, traffic stops have been down. I mean, we're encouraging our officers to practice good social distancing, but that doesn't mean to stop doing our job. So, I mean, if somebody is violating the law, speeding, you know, driving recklessly, driving intoxicated, any of those things, just because we're in a recession doesn't mean that people get a pass on breaking the laws and violating the laws, and that there isn't some sort of accountability that needs to be put in place. Some people may be at a financial disadvantage now, but people are sometimes at a financial disadvantage year round, but there's still the need for um, law and order to be in place. Granted, discretion can come into play, and maybe um, some lenience on occasion when appropriate, but it's still our job to make sure that those who are abiding by the laws and doing the right thing and trying to stay safe and just want a safe and healthy community, um, get that, and we play a big factor into that. So yeah, I mean, I would say business as usual for us. Maybe a little bit less volume of calls for service, but again, that could, as time goes on and people become claustrophobic in their homes, or become anxious with financial situations or whatever. I'd actually heard, I haven't seen this, but I had heard that law enforcement was called down to Wisconsin Rapids because people were actually fighting in the toilet paper aisle, and they needed to actually stand by and be a physical, visual presence because of people's concern and anxiety and, um, well, I guess to an extent, ridiculousness because, um, some people probably have enough toilet paper to last them until the year 2030 right now, I'm guessing. But yeah, I think I don't want to minimize people's concern. I don't want to say that this isn't something worth worrying about, but I think you can go extreme and overboard on the other end too. So I think that there has to be some sort of balancing test that has to happen, and um, some are practicing that well, some aren't.
There's other ordinances that are kind of in play here in Marshfield, and sometimes, throughout the winter, we forget about some of those ordinances because, be frank with you, kids are in school, they're not socially out as much. Have you seen, or do you feel the need to, you know, let the youth know of, curfews in the community or anything in that nature that are present year round?
It's never a bad message to put out there. I know, having um, I have adult children, but having kids myself, I know that just in talking to them and some of the parents are taking this serious. I think, especially when it comes to the kids, and they're not allowing them to hang out with friends as much. I mean, the social distancing goes for every age, and the last thing you want to do is um, have your child exposed to something and then them bring it into the home where maybe grandma or grandpa are living, and put them at a disadvantage. So I think with the medical community here, there's just a natural respect for um, health and wellness and the medical profession. And I think that when messages are going out, whether it's from Marshfield Clinic or Marshfield Medical Center or even Aspirus, in the area, I mean, I think that I think it's taken serious, and I think that we all know somebody who's a nurse, a doctor, in the medical profession in some way, shape, or form, uh, and they're taking it serious. So we need to take it serious, and I think that those messages are going out. So I mean, as far as the kids go, I think that they're going to get stir crazy. I'm sure that they're going to be sick of being at home or doing homework from home, uh, but I also think that sharing that message can never, again, it's that communication thing where I don't think you can over communicate that as far as expectations and accountability and needs right now for the community.
With a number of businesses obviously being closed, deemed for if they're a place of social gathering or they've been deemed non-essential. Has property owners, business owners, have they reached out to you asking, "Hey, can you pay a little extra attention to my property as you're patrolling?" Any calls for service like that, or are you guys just naturally doing some of those things?
We're doing that a little bit more maybe than normal just to stay busy, to stay active and to be seen. I think that's one of the biggest things we can do right now is just be seen, um, in this state of concern and crisis and fear and fear of the unknown. I think seeing some normalcy is good and healthy, and I think just a law enforcement presence. Actually, I've heard from people personally that they appreciate our presence that's been seen, whether it's in a neighborhood, a residential area, whether it's they'll see us patrolling the outskirts of their business, through surveillance cameras. We've come across a couple of open doors of businesses that maybe had forgotten to lock a door, but those are things that we should be doing on a regular basis outside of COVID. But no, we have gotten some specific requests from businesses. We've had some business owners tell us some of their fears of, if things got really bad, would things turn to um, theft and looting and burglaries and of course we want to say, we want to say no and hope not. But again, anxiety, fear, and desperation can always come into play, and I've heard across the country of some similar things happening. Obviously, it's in some pretty large metropolitan areas and such, but um, I never want to be naive and be caught off guard when it comes to that realization and possibilities. So uh, I tell them that we'll definitely pick up property protection efforts. uh, we'll notify them if we see something out of the ordinary, and we ask them to just let us know what's ordinary, because I had a conversation with the YMCA and saying, okay, what lights should and shouldn't be on, which what business, finding out from some of the restaurants downtown, what are your hours, so we know that if there's lighter activity going on at 10 at night when you closed at 7 in the evening, that we need to maybe look into that. So a lot of that is gathering that information, but then sharing that right back out to our officers so that they're informed as to what is um, normal and what's not.
You talk about being on patrol, and one thing I think people, recognize is that having a police department in town and having officers on patrol, there's always a good chance that there's an officer in every corner of the city, right? A lot of times when there's cases of emergency that come up, you guys are really the first responders if it's a medical emergency, just because usually there's always an officer in proximity to that call. And thankfully, the fire department is centrally located in Marshfield, but sometimes their response, depending on where they have to get to, may take a few minutes. And with the police department, being out on patrol and being out there, we saw an incident here. Was it last week where one of your officers responded to a life threatening situation where there was a baby that the caller called in and dispatched knowledge that the baby wasn't breathing. When you reflect on that call, what are some of the things that come to mind? Obviously, the importance of training for the officers to understand advanced life saving measures, and just the importance of the officers being present and available in the community, throughout the community.
I think it's very important that our officers are obviously present and spread throughout the community. Um, some public service organizations, just by their nature, respond from their station. Well, our goal is to be responding. I mean, we call them patrol officers. Part of patrolling is driving through or walking through the city and being a presence. One of the first deterrents of crime is a physical presence, and if we're not seen, I think that the likelihood of crime escalating is inevitable. With that, yeah, I mean, a lot of it depends on how prompt we can respond to calls for service. We say that we have a 3 to 5 minute response time anywhere in the city. I'd like to think that it's 3 minutes or less, just because if all of our officers are out and about, spread throughout the city, that there really isn't anywhere in the city that we can't get to in less than 3 minutes, especially when in emergency mode. But yeah, we had a call the other night, middle of the night, where parents called up, said that it got reported to us as a pulseless, non-breathing infant. We had officers not too far away. I think they had arrived in definitely less than 3 minutes. I think it was less than a minute and a half, and were able to come and assist parents by providing CPR and other life-saving efforts to this child, which had was suffering from a medical emergency. So yeah, I mean, it's in times of pandemic or times of epidemic or times of um, just boredom. I mean, that can change. I think I had put a post out there that they say 95 to 98% of law enforcement work is sedentary or non. I don't want to say effortless, but a lot of verbal communication, a lot of uh, patrolling, maybe walking up to a car on a traffic stop. But then you have that 2 to 5%, which is sometimes defined as sheer terror, where you're um, fighting for your life or you're fighting for the life of somebody else. And uh, we never know when that's going to happen, but we have to be prepared for it when it does. So I pride our department on and all of our officers on being prepared for that, that they're physically, mentally, and emotionally prepared to respond to any emergency that's needed. And this is just one example where we had an officer. I'm not even going to say in the right place at the right time because, I mean, they were at the right place and they did the right actions, and it obviously was the right time. I mean, if we were responding, if everybody was in one corner of the city and we needed them in the other corner of the city, I mean, it might have been in, um, but it might have been longer than 5 minutes in a response, and that could impact the individual's life that was saved. So um, it's funny. I'll say that we're often in the right place at the right time, whether it would be a school shooting event or some sort of emergency or life saving efforts like this. And I had a police and fire commissioner tell me once that it's weird that I say that being um, in that situation is being in the right place at the right time, because most other citizens or employees of a business or students within that school would feel that they were in the wrong place at the wrong time. So it's
Absolutely.
just a matter of a different viewpoint, I guess.
Well, it's really cool to be able to share that story. And if you guys want to hear more about that story and even hear the call from dispatch, it's on our website. It's on the Marshall Police Department's Facebook page. If you guys are not followers of those pages, I encourage you to do so. Marshall PD does a great job of communication. We've been talking about that here all morning. But it's just good. It's a good place to connect, and it's a good way to stay up to date on what's going on. As far as additional updates, Rick, um, any new faces, any new officers in the department that we should know of?
Not really new faces. We had a familiar face return to us, Jesse Klaha, who had began working for us in March of 2018. Was actually deployed overseas in October of 2018, so he had only been with us about 7 months. His deployment lasted roughly a year, and with training and clearance and such, he actually came back to us just this month. So it's good to have him back. He's originally from the Marinette area, and like I said, had began with us in March of 2018, and he's so right now he's going through some refresher training and um, just getting back up to speed. He's actually been gone from us longer than he was actually with us, so that's but he's picked up pretty much right where he left off. His training program is probably going to be significantly shorter than we thought it might be, which is good because uh, then I think we'll be one officer down at this time and looking at hiring a replacement probably in the coming months. But yeah, as of right now, he's the only new face that we have.
So through this time, obviously, there's naturally people are feeling this kind of wind down in their business, and as we've been talking here all morning, Rick, we've been really talking about business as normal for the police department, while you guys have been dealing with these other precautions with COVID-19. y- this last few days, something that's kind of probably really important to the Marshfield community is we learned that the Madison PD was able to formally make a charge and arrest in the killing of Brittany Zimmerman. And I don't know if how well the marshal and the police department played a role in that particular investigation, but it's important to know that, even why we're looking at the things in front of us, the police department is definitely looking at the things behind us. Do you feel there's a time or the opportunity is more irrelevant with some of the officers to use maybe some of this time where traffic stops have maybe kind of decreased a little bit just because there's not the presence of people out there? That you guys are really starting to really review some of your open cases and seeing if you can put any fresh perspective on them?
Yeah, I think that, that's one of the things where when we have fewer calls for service and maybe fewer opportunities for self-initiated activities such as traffic stops or certain enforcement efforts. I mean, granted, we're still, even if there's not as many cars out there that could be stopped, I mean, there's still opportunities to do business walkthroughs of the grocery stores or convenience stores, especially when we see a lot of cars there and there's a congregate of people that are shopping or what have you. So doing either parking lot drive-throughs or actually physical store walkthroughs, I think is very essential. But yeah, I mean, there's still going to potentially be some downtime throughout the average day, whether a pandemic is going on or not. So um, we always recommend that our officers stay on top of their caseload, that they go back. One thing that I was able to do is I printed off cases that are between 5 and 6 years old that may be reaching a statute of limitations if they're felony cases that are still open, more or less a cold case, but just printed off a list of those cases that will be potentially outside of the statute of limitations within the next year, so we can maybe see if there's any more movement in those cases or any more investigation efforts that can be put forth towards those cases, because it's easy when something gets a little bit older that it kind of gets put on the back burner and then it gets pushed off the stovetop and then it's put in a drawer somewhere, and out of sight out of mind is just natural, I think, in any profession, and I don't want that to be natural in ours. So we're doing our best to go back to some of these cases. We may have some retail thefts or gas drive offs that are 2.5 years old, and those are maybe approaching on their statute of limitations, which is 3 years. So there's a lot of times we'll put suspect pictures out on Facebook, or send them throughout the PD to see if anyone recognizes the individual. Just because we didn't recognize that individual back in uh, 2015 doesn't mean that they haven't become a um, frequent customer of ours and maybe now we recognize them. So I think it's just really important to go back, review those old cases that are still open, at the very least, just to be able to give the victims an update as to where the case is and potentially get them some closure that they deserve.
Absolutely, absolutely. I couldn't argue with that for even 1 second at all. Well, Rick, as we kind of wind this down a little bit and we move on to the next phase in our coverage, what else is maybe important or pertinent that you might want to share with our community and just the community of Marshfield?
I just like to say, especially during this time of uncertainty, that we're going to do our best to communicate with the community. There's times where we're going to be busy trying to um, do our job, and there might not be as many communications out, but that's one area that we've been good at and we really don't want to slacken, is just sharing out community information, giving the community not only confidence in us but giving them some sense of normalcy, and just I don't want to change things too much from the way that they've been, but we're here to serve them. The fact that a pandemic is going on isn't going to cause us to um, withhold any of our efforts. It's going to not. It's just going to. I want them to have the confidence in us that we're here for them. When we say to serve and protect, it's often putting ourselves at risk to serve and protect the community. So that's not changing. We're going to do our best to keep them informed, and as always, if anyone has any information that they feel we need to know or they can assist us in any way, we are always very, very eager to do it. I want to just give a shout out to, there's been a number of area businesses that have donated food to us when some of our officers are working late nights or long days. We've had some coffee and tea deliveries, we've had some pizza deliveries, we've had some sandwich and donut deliveries. So
You had some donut deliveries. I
we
was
did.
wondering.
So
It
yeah,
was kind of a I was concerned, with the donut if there would be a donut shortage in the apartment, but, I mean, I that's great news.
and I don't recall any coming from Premier Printing or Trimedia, but there's been a lot that have come from other organizations. So you can cut that out if you want.
No, I'm gonna keep that in there. Rick, I
Yeah,
apologize for us not contributing to the donage, donut gate.
yeah. There's been a lot of community support for us, and I would assume that the fire department has experienced the same love. I guess I'll define it from the community. So um,
Um,
we appreciate it, and it doesn't go unnoticed.
Absolutely, for sure. Well, Rick, I just want to thank you for the opportunity. I mean, for those that are with us and listening, I mean, this is something that we're going to continue to do. It's our way of trying to connect our leaders with you and trying to share some of the news that matters most. If it be someone in the police department, fire department, or different areas of public safety, those in the health industry, those in the worship segments of our community, even some of the organizations and just people that are really trying to contribute. We're going to try to cover them the best that we can. So if you haven't already, hit the description, follow our page, subscribe to the channel. This is on Apple and Spotify. So if you're an active runner or just need something in the background, not saying we're the best entertainment, but definitely great information that we're sharing with you. And Rick, I just want to thank you for the opportunity. I said it a couple of times, but I really do mean that. It's a privilege to have this time with you and just get a great, um, great coverage of what's kind of shaping here in Marshfield.
Yeah, thank you. I very much appreciate the opportunity, and look forward to the next one.
Sounds great, Rick. Guys, thanks again for following us. Stay tuned for more coverage. I'm Brandon Bonifer with On Focus, and we'll see you guys next time.